Nope.
There's more than us waving. There's a countdown.
Woohoo! So welcome to our Disney earnings preview. We are going to today at right after the bell, around 1:00 Pacific time. Disney will announce their third quarter earnings, which is April, May, and June. So this is like Daisy's niece's earnings call. So ahead of earnings, Disney stock is down about 50 cents, kind of on pace with the Dow as a whole. The day started. I'm just looking at the Dow right now. It started at record highs, but has now pulled back from that just shortly after opening. The stock market opened about 5 minutes ago. So, but I don't think we're today. I think is more about big picture stuff, though, right? Like,
probably. I mean, it kind of has to be because you mentioned the stock price. It's been pretty irrelevant lately. Like, it's down for the quarter and from the start of the quarter, but it's also not nearly as ridiculous as it was a few quarters ago, where you're seeing really low lows and really high highs. It feels like it's very, very middling lately.
And I think there's just so many questions. I think when things started to rebound, and they saw, okay, you're going to take Disney Plus, the value we give it, and then add on theme parks, and theme parks under normal operating conditions, not theme parks today. But obviously the Delta variant, Southwest yesterday announced that they're seeing more cancellations as a result of the Delta variant.
Well, yeah, they don't want competition. Delta and Southwest.
Yeah, they need the Southwest variant. And then also you have sort of a murky day and date premiere access theatrical question about like this premiere access and sort of the shortened theatrical window in general hurt box office at the theaters. And it's hard to answer that question because you don't know what box office is impacted by just the COVID, situation. How much is this sort of structural change that would have happened anyway? Maybe people just are, because they've been so used to being cooped up, they're not going out to movies as much, and a comfort level with that. And obviously, there's the lawsuit or pending lawsuit with, regarding Black Widow. Not so much that is consequential in and of itself, but sort of the bigger picture of where that could lead.
Yeah, I think like you're saying, not the monetary value of that lawsuit itself, and not even necessarily what it means for that model. But I think, I don't know, there could be some harm done there and reputationally. So I think that could also have an impact.
Yeah, and that one's harder to say because, obviously, I don't know how many people actually watching, like, outside of Hollywood, how many people care. The people watching What If yesterday, I don't think they were wondering, what's going on with Scarlett Johansson as a whole. But, that has a way of leaking into other things, becoming part of the consciousness. And it's hard to say, I feel like there's more to the story, and I don't want to speculate what that is because both sides are handling it differently than normally these kinds of disputes are handled. And so it feels like there's more going on there than we are probably public to, the discussions that happened before the lawsuits filed, the trying to take care of it in-house, assuming that happened, which should have happened. I don't. it just seems like, and we're not going to know because those are conversations. Those are not, that will probably never come out until Bob Chapek writes his book.
Yeah.
But
I'm not even necessarily talking about like the reputational impact on consumers. I'm thinking more like if you're attacking talent so viciously in a statement, I wonder, and you're kind of known for getting the best talent of these Oscar winners and stuff, how long that's going to keep up for if you keep.
But you think? I mean, I think about this a lot lately. There's so much content out there. I feel that the star power, unless you're known not so much for your acting ability, but
I just realized our banner says earnings preview.
No, but like I feel like there's some people that have sort of a creative vision that's like people seem to follow, but I remember when like everyone was like, "Oh, Chris Pratt's the hottest thing," not necessarily physically, but just because. But I was like, he was in a Marvel movie and Jurassic World. Like, what drew them to it? I mean, they might like Chris Pratt; he might be likable, but then he's in, he's gonna be in some Netflix movie that no one cares about, and just fizzle out there. And so, I wonder about the value of star power. I mean, I think there's the value I think Disney has is getting people to sign these deals where they're on Disney Plus shows and whatever. But I don't know that they need to get a Scarlett Johansson type or or even a Robert Downey Jr. type at this point. If they're not going to, because people aren't seeing it, and they'll see it once they introduce them as the star. So it's like they need to get them, before they say, "Oh yeah, you're going to be in this movie." It could be a nobody, and I think as long as they're excited to be in the film, and what new star is not, the fans will follow.
I agree with that, but I still don't think you need to be attacking them, regardless of.
Well, that's what's weird, right? Like, why did they do that? Was it just? I mean, I can't imagine it was like. It just seems weird, and I think they haven't pulled back from it, which is weird too. They keep saying like, okay, there's more here. We can't talk about it, but this was not handled appropriately, and Disney's not one to go out and publicly, they're not like an Elon Musk where they just sort of like, talk off the cuff. So that's why I feel like the bad blood didn't start with the filing of the lawsuit.
It was the Tower of Terror project.
But there's also, I mean, we don't know who's going to be chairman of this company in a couple months. I don't think it'll be Bob Chapek. So, who could that be? Those are questions. Will Disney restore its dividend now that the parks are open? Or are they going to still hang on to the cash to do other things? And I also think it'll be interesting to see if they talk about their investment in the parks. They kind of talked about how, they had they pulled back on some things, which is obvious. But now that we kind of see where the parks landed, will they, what's their longer term vision? I know we're still in a COVID situation, but the parks seem like they've recovered, at least domestically, significantly. Mm-hmm. And then cruise line, what's the situation there? How are bookings looking? How are cancellations looking? So there's a lot of questions. I was thinking about this morning. I think this is probably the most impactful earnings call we've had in a long time. Like where there's ever since the sort of Disney Plus will Bob Iger stay question. I think this is the one. This is one where we have a lot of actual questions. This might not be one where they announce a lot of new things or whatever, but I think if the investors ask the right questions, which
they won't,
I think there's a lot to talk about.
They're going to ask about sports rights, and they're going to ask about Disney Plus some more. And no matter what, they turn on it so quickly. They were all so like impressed with Disney Plus, and then then immediately like there's a number comes in a little bit lower than not even what Disney said, but what somebody else said, and then they're like, "Oh, the market's already saturated." Give it a minute. But I think on the parks business, I think I don't know if analysts completely understand the business. In fact, I'm confident that they don't. So I'm curious if I think it would be smart of Disney and Chapek today to actually explain what this new annual pass holder program means for their parks business. Because I'm not sure that they really understand that they're kind of going to be able to write their own ticket as far as filling the theme parks each day or getting, making it so it's full but not too full every day. And I think that'll be interesting if they lay that out for them.
Yeah, and I think Magic Key is interesting because I think it's pretty clear to me that it's not as revolutionary as they may have thought it was going to be.
I was surprised in how much it looked like exactly what I thought it would look like.
Yeah, well, I guess there was those surveys where it's like, would you do this? Where I don't want to say it was, completely like a whole new mind-blowing thing, but it's basically annual passes with reservations. And that's what Disney World has under the banner Walt Disney World annual passes. So, and
Currently.
I don't. What's that?
Currently, I mean, the hope is that the Florida version will evolve back to what it was, and then the California one is confirmed to be staying this way forever. Now, I'm not saying that the Florida one won't change, but hasn't it? Do you always need reservation?
I don't think reservations are going away for anyone.
But they haven't lowered the price or changed. They haven't announced any of that. I mean, they said reservations are going away. I mean, it's easier to come by reservations now than it was, though, right?
Yeah, I mean, I think so.
And what's the limit on how many you can hold on a Florida pass?
I don't know.
Because I mean, those things are probably going to change if they aren't going to.
But hey, Caitlin. Yeah, well, I don't. It's and even like they talk about the benefits for the annual pass, like the Magic Key program. And it's like, you can go to the Wine Country Terrace, you can have special photo ops. I mean, it's like seriously this exact same thing. Mm-hmm. And it's a new name. You have reservations, but even the blackout day calendars look very familiar. So, and for some people, I think it's even a better value. Assuming you can get a reservation. It might. Obviously, we don't know how easy it will be to get a reservation, which is really what will impact it. But, it takes away the, I just want to go to Disney World on a whim, Disneyland on a whim situation. But I don't think of it as a revolution, especially on the numbers. Like, I don't think it's going to greatly impact business results. I just think, with the exception of it'll make Disney a less miserable place sometimes, and that could impact business. But
I think it could have a larger impact on business than you might realize. Like if I've compared this program to a single rider line, to where you're helping them increase, you're getting a benefit because you get to potentially ride a ride faster and not wait in the big line, but you're helping them with efficiency and making sure that they're getting as full as possible on their own terms. So, I think if they're able to, what they've been trying to do this whole time, spread out their attendance across the calendar to maximize it, I think that this goes a long way towards doing that. And I think that that's something that they should emphasize.
Yeah, but I think, I think they're finally getting to what the program was supposed to be. It was supposed to even out. That's what I mean. Not necessarily the premiere.
Right. So that's why they should tell the people that probably don't know.
Yeah, well, they I think people, well, the investors, they might not know, what do they know, right? Like they're going to be like, oh yeah, this is going to maximize, but they don't realize it's the same thing at basically the same price. but then you have the guests who, I think, unless it's really hard to examine what this will be like until we know how easy it is to get a reservation. Because it's interesting, the highest level pass, which used to block out the last 2 weeks, has no blackout dates. It just, you need a reservation. So how easy will it be to get a reservation on New Year's Eve? But it's rare, I think, maybe 1984, which I don't remember very well, for the company to have all of its businesses being transformed at the same time. The other thing that they may want to look at is what's the benefit, the financial benefit for moving those 2,000 folks to Lake Nona in Orlando from California. Obviously there's a cost because no one's pay is being lowered, so there's a cost in relocating people, just movers and flights and stuff like that. But they say this is the right business decision. So what are they getting in terms of tax credits or I don't necessarily, kickback might not be the right word, but the where's the economic benefit that they're getting from this coming from?
Those people are really like getting a raise. If you think about
they're getting a huge raise.
I mean, between cost of living and taxes.
Yeah,
no income tax, right, in Florida?
No state income tax. You have they don't Prop 13, so property taxes are really the primary sort of local driver, unless you live in Orange County, where the bed tax is a big contributor to sort of the general niceness of the community, because while it's supposed to be spent on things that help tourism and things, some reason the local performing arts center fell into that, and other things like that. So you really lucked out. Unless obviously there's sort of an emotional cost of moving, you have kids in school,
and you have to live in Florida. There's a weather component here for sure.
There's definitely a weather component, but in terms of an economic, you just got a major windfall, because I'm sure when they hire new people to, if someone doesn't relocate, they will be paid at an appropriate Florida wage as opposed to what they needed to be paid to live in California. But I don't know. Is there one thing that you're most interested in hearing about?
Not really. I feel like it's always the same old. So I guess, but I'm just kind of prepared for some of those same questions about Disney Plus and about, you keep saying that this is a temporary Premier Access thing. Is that still the plan? What's your next one going to be? I guess I'm interested to hear what other movies they're thinking about doing Premier Access for, if any, because obviously they've gone further since then. They've actually been releasing numbers, which ironically I figured was because ScarJo's points were based on it. But now in hindsight, it potentially seems like they were just bragging that they took money off the table for her. But I don't know.
I think it's tonight. Free Guy's released in theaters only, and as far as we know, there's no titles announced for Premier Access. That might change by this afternoon, but I think they also thought that we'd be done. Just like we all kind of thought that masks were gone, return to normal operation, no limits, and then suddenly, bam. We're wearing masks. I was just at Disneyland yesterday, and it's weird to have been there without a mask, and enjoyed the park normally. And now, putting it on every time you go indoors is, if it's a step back. I don't think there's a different way of putting it. So is that going to impact their strategy theatrically? And I guess we'll see how. They don't have until I think Free Guy is one thing, because it's not a franchise film. I don't know that it's a good indicator, because there's no, like, what do you compare it to? It's hard to gauge. You're not going to compare it against
Has
Deadpool.
to make $200 million.
So But then, you have Shang-Chi coming up in a couple weeks, which is probably going to be a lot sort of an easier comparison. New Marvel franchise film we had before. And while I don't think they expect it to be the same as it was, before, at least you'll know where things stand on a theatrically released Marvel movie. And then decision making can actually happen, assuming it's good and doesn't get terrible buzz. Right? But I don't envy Bob Chapek right now. I know he gets a lot of flack, but nothing is as it was when he took over. Like in 2 months, all the businesses had to evolve. Every single thing Disney does was different, and that's a lot to manage. But we'll see. We'll be back after the earnings call, which will take place a few minutes after. It takes place at 1:30 Pacific, 4:30 Eastern, and we can nominate our dumbest earnings question of the day and see where things land. But I'll take another look at the stock price as we speak. Disney's off its lowest lows of the day. It's down about 30 cents. And it's at 177. I think we've seen it pop to. We've seen it as it's like 185s. Was sort of the highs, and the 52-week high was actually 203 in March, and the low was last October at 117.23. So that's a span of 80 points or so, 85 points. That's a big run on a stock that's trading at 180 points.
Right, but that was all contained to like a certain point last year, like you're saying from March, and I don't even think that was the lowest. That's a 52-week low, but it was even lower than that in like March or April of last year. So now that's back.
In March it was $79.
Yeah,
and obviously, I mean, 52-week lows, they do that because it's a year. Everything changed in December when they did the earnings day, the investor day, where they announced everything. Which, I mean, we can talk about how that just proves how stupid Wall Street is. It's like, do you think they were going to come out and not announce new content? Like, what did you think they were going to say? Like, they didn't say anything that I consider revolutionary. They just talked about, they released some titles. They revised numbers up, but of course they did because they already met their 5-year goal. So how are you going to?
But now they haven't met their 5-year goal immediately. So I'm bearish.
I don't know. I just don't get sometimes these guys. It's like I used to say when Bob Iger was around. It's like, I don't know how you guys haven't picked up. If Bob Iger is going to be on CNBC, that means they're going to exceed expectations. If he's not on CNBC, that means it's going to be lower than expected.
And he might be on after the meeting to kind of clean things up.
Yeah. So Bob Chapek will be on Mad Money tonight. If you want to watch that, starting at 6 Eastern, with the CEO of Bumble. So maybe there's a Disney Bumble collaboration coming.
The Disney Bumble, it's right there.
Disney Bumble. What's going to be game changing? That watching like 3 hours of a stream, like a literal stream of water that they promoted. You should do an article, Kyle, because you're clever, of things that were hyped by Disney that people took way too far.
One day at Disney, the streamer.
Yeah, where Disney says, "Hey, we're gonna have an announcement," and everyone's like, "It's gonna be this amazing thing," and it's like a commercial. Or there used to be on the corner of Backstage Lane and Buena Vista Drive, there was a sign that said "Coming Soon," and it was like a present. And we're like, "Ooh, what are they building here? What's exciting?" And then it turned out it was a billboard for the Vacation Club. And so it was a billboard promoting an upcoming billboard. And it was not nearly as exciting as and then you think about, knowing Disney as we do, someone like they spent money to design it, they spent money to like implement it, and all that. I do have a question for you about Free Guy, 86% on Rotten Tomatoes. This is a movie that could return people to theaters. You used to work at a theater. Will you see Free Guy in theaters?
Maybe.
That's the definitive answers we have here in place.
Yeah. I have no idea. I'll just say, like, I could keep up with the movie theater business. If you put me in front of a film projector, I could still thread it. Like, I have dreams about threading the film. Now it's all digital, obviously, and I feel like I could still work at a movie theater and run a movie theater. Not anymore. The business has completely changed. Like, talking to people, it's kind of crazy how the entire thing blew up. Like, I know people who were senior managers and they had to wipe out, like, pretty much everyone and keep like 2 people and then demote the rest to like team leaders back to floor staff from being senior managers. It's kind of crazy. So,
what do you think the movie business can do?
What do I think it can do?
Well, like, so obviously there was time when like movies were the only thing, and then there's like 100 movies, like there's movies every week, just what you did, right? There was no TV, and then the movie business evolved into being more of a prestige, like kind of, less of them, but they were, bigger in terms of like, bigger stars and everything. And then obviously Jaws came out and kind of changed that, where, movie coming out became an event with national ads and all that. So the movie business has been very resilient. I feel like ever since I was like a kid, I've read about like the demise of the movie theater, right? Like the multiplex is going to ruin movies because you can hear other movies while you're watching, and then like, do you think they will find ways to I'm not talking now, like, well, there's still issues, but like when this is all said and done, hopefully, how do you think they will evolve to be a viable business if everyone is pushing, particularly Wall Street, for some reason, to not, kill theatrical, which I don't understand, because I don't think anyone's not going to subscribe to Disney Plus because they can't watch the Marvel movie today, that's out in theaters for another, 45, 16, even 90 days. I just don't think that's a big deal. But then you're leaving money on the table because it's only additive. Like, sure, I think, forget Premier Access is one thing, but like having extra money for a movie that you can put on Disney Plus that people will pay to watch on Disney Plus, and you still have, as long as you're making Disney Plus content and especially if you're making Disney Plus content that ties into the movie, like, I don't know that it's a huge subscriber driver. Like, maybe, during COVID when people wanted it, but like, I don't think under normal circumstances, people are like, oh no, they might have Loki, they might have Mandalorian, but I'm not going to subscribe until I can see Black Widow on Disney Plus day and date. Right. I will not wait 45 days.
I think COVID is the key. The reason that the business that I was talking about is suffering is because of COVID and not necessarily about the product, even though obviously now theaters are going to be scared about that. But even before that, like, we would still see new record highs, and obviously there were some movies that were making box office records. Sorry, but we would see attendance records on certain days, and those days tend to be holidays. It's a big family thing where you want to come and bring your whole family and do something different. And there were certain markets that I worked in where no matter what came out, even if it was Free Guy or just nothing could come out that week, and we'd still be every weekend just selling out left and right because it was the thing to do. And also you've seen a bigger emphasis on like revivals and stuff. So you've seen, during the week they'll be showing Wizard of Oz on Tuesday, or they'll be showing, The Shining or all these other movies. So I think that that's kind of what they've done is, you have your big blockbuster weekends, and then you have, you kind of lean into that prestige thing and the chance to see something you could watch at home anytime on a big screen. So I think theaters will be okay. I think they'll be able to evolve. It's just a matter of hanging in there until people are ready to go sit in a room packed with strangers for 2 hours again.
Because I mean, once again, outside of COVID, like I would even pay, even though I have Disney Plus, like I would pay to go Thursday night to see the season finale of Mandalorian or season premiere of Loki, like just to have a communal experience with it.
Mm-hmm.
It's no one wanted to see Endgame with the Avengers Assemble bit like at home by yourself. Like,
right.
I mean, I should say no one, because there's always people that just hate people even more than I do. But
as long as you deserve seating, I'm okay.
But I envision like someday one of the streamers is gonna like create like a decent theatrical sort of pipeline, and they're gonna be praised because like they found an alternate revenue stream that they didn't know existed. And I'll be like, you dummies, like of course. Like you can even say like, hey, to buy a ticket, you need to be a subscriber and just have some sort of deal with the theater. I mean, there's ways to do this, but
I probably told you this before. I actually wrote a paper in high school, or not high school, sorry, college, but still a long time ago. This was back when Mark Cuban released the Steven Soderbergh movie Bubble on HDNet Movies and in Landmark Theaters, and it was released by Magnolia Pictures. And so I wrote about that window closing, and my solution was that they should let the theaters sell the DVD exclusively. Obviously, that doesn't make sense anymore, but that way, how many more DVDs would you have bought if you got to buy it right after you saw it in a theater instead of waiting 3 months and then seeing it at a Target and be like, oh, I guess I like that movie enough. But yeah, so I think something in that model, but then now it's so direct that it's like, why would the theaters bother sharing their profits with the theaters other than an act of goodwill? But I think there's still some sort of partnerships and stuff that could form there and that's mutual beneficial. I just don't quite know what that looks like.
Well, I mean, I think they already do like affiliate marketing and stuff. So what's the difference whether you give it to, Laughing Place or you give it to AMC theaters? Like, I think they're okay giving a percentage to someone who markets a movie. Like that's just, sure, you want to keep as much as you can, but that's just not the way, they still air commercials. They still do things like that. So they did announce just a moment ago a new Disney Plus original coming November 12th, Home Sweet Home Alone, starring Ellie Kemper, Rob Delaney, Archie Yates, Aisling Bea, Kenan Thompson, Tim Simons, Pete Holmes, Devin Ratray, Ali Mackey, and Chris Parnell. So November 12th. This is a kind of movie that was made to be a Disney Plus original.
And was announced, I mean, not formally announced, but we knew that there was Home Alone stuff in the works.
Right. And so he looks a little older than Kevin McAllister.
Going back to the theater business, the other thing we would do, because day and date is not like something hasn't been around for a long time. It has. And in some cases, we'd mostly boycott them, but we'd also do four-walling, which is where the studio pays you a fee up front to rent the theater essentially, and then takes all of the profits. So maybe we'll see more four-walling model going forward for some of these.
I've been surprised that the theaters haven't had more success with basically like sports barring, like showing, the Super Bowl, or a big sort of like a boxing match or whatever, because they serve food. Many, not all, but many theaters have upped their concession games at minimum. Some are dine-in theaters. Like, it's obviously a big screen. I'm surprised that hasn't taken off. Just, I remember I went to a screening of some Disney screening, maybe it was Frozen, and they were showing like the season premiere of Doctor Who the night before it was on BBC America or whatever, and the line was crazy, and there are people cosplaying and all that, and I was like, oh, like this. There's something here, like, to do this. Like, obviously, you're not going to do it for like the season premiere of, Jeopardy, the greatest of all time or something. I mean, it has to be something that has a passionate fan base that's excited to see something right away with other people. But I'm surprised more of that doesn't happen, because
I think a lot of it, more of it happens than you might realize. But I think
well, the Metropolitan Opera.
Yeah, the Met is definitely there every time. And there's also, I think, the most interesting side of the movie theater business that people might not realize are all of the screenings, like not just media screenings, but also when you win free passes from the radio and stuff, like how those work. And most interesting of all is research screenings of people don't know what they're gonna be seeing, and all the little like controls they'll have. Like, I once worked at a theater. I didn't work at this location, but they showed 2 versions of a horror movie with a different ringtone so that they could see which one people like better. So it's kind of crazy.
That's crazy.
Research screenings are very, very, very interesting. And it's kind of I know it sounds so totally unrelated to what you're thinking of, but it is related in my mind, in that it's the people using the movie theater as a venue and not just a singular experience.
Yeah, and I think part of it is the consumers have to think about it that way too. There's totally, like, the people going to see the Met, like, they bought into it, but you need to get other people to buy into that kind of thing, where it's not just a movie, it's a presentation. Like I could even see, like, a comic convention getting into the sort of that business, right? Where it's like, yeah, you're not going to see it live, but the only challenge, I think, is your movie theaters are probably well run, but like sometimes you go to these things and like the theaters don't know how to handle it. Like they forget to download the file, or they forget to push play. I've had happen.
Well,
once
I will
or twice,
say,
one of those sort of odd screenings.
Studios aren't also that great about sending keys and stuff. You're like, I just need you to send me a tiny little file in an email, and you're not responding to me, and you're causing hundreds of people to be mad at me. You need to get on this.
Well, and that's the kind of stuff that, like, yeah, if you're gonna make this, you need to make it seem like it's not a weird thing that I'm managing. It needs to be something, I mean, on both sides, studio, whoever the content provider is, and theater, because otherwise you just feel like, I don't know, it just doesn't feel, it's gonna be hard to buy in if every time you go, like, I mean, I literally had one where it was like, it was like saved to a DVR, like when they actually came and fixed it, like you could see it was like a dish of DVR, and they were rewinding and fast forwarding the DVR because they didn't start it at the right time and trying to get to the right spot, so it was the right, it wouldn't go late. And I'm like, this is unprofessional. Like, now I might be less inclined to go to something like this because it's not well run.
Yeah.
But so join us. We'll be live blogging, I think, if Kyle's available, the earnings call, which will happen at 1:30 Pacific, 4:30 Eastern. We'll start a little bit earlier when the earnings come out after the bell. So start watching around 4 o'clock Eastern, 1 o'clock Pacific. And we'll see. We'll look at the subscriber numbers. We'll look at the revenue numbers. Things are a little hidden now because they moved everything into the media group. So, but
what's the stock at now? Now that they've announced this Home Alone.
Oh yeah. Let's see. How funny would it be if it now it's positive? Nope. It went down further. Now it's down a buck and 25 cents. So people are not excited about Home Away from Home. What's it? Home Sweet Home Alone. It's like if Home Alone and Sweet Home Alabama had a baby, it would be. Oh, I just got the log line though. Max Mercer is a mischievous and resourceful young boy who's been left behind while his family is in Japan for the holidays. So when a married couple attempting to retrieve a priceless heirloom set their sights on the Mercer family's home, it is up to Max to protect it from the trespassers, and he will do whatever it takes to keep them out. Hilarious hijinks of epic proportions ensue, but despite the absolute chaos, Max comes to realize that there really is no place like Home Sweet Home.
Okay.
So I'm guessing Ellie Kemper and Rob Delaney play the robbers. Archie Yates of Jojo Rabbit fame is the boy. And there's a lot of other people who I have no idea what role they play. And it's directed by Dan Mazer, whose credit is Dirty Grandpa.
I think that's Johnny Knoxville.
Oh, the screenplay is credited to Mikey Day and Streeter Seidel from Saturday Night Live, with a story by Mikey Day, Streeter Seidel, and somehow from beyond the grave, John Hughes.
John Hughes thought of the template.
Yeah. So you can tell this is going to deviate greatly from all the other movies in the Home Alone franchise, because this is John Hughes locked us in the box, and he's like, the artistic merits of Home Sweet Home Alone cannot be fully appreciated until 2021 after a pandemic. And so you cannot make this film until after my passing and Disney Plus is available. So anyway, we will be back. Hopefully Disney went out something that will be positive to earnings, but we'll see. And enjoy Home Sweet Home Alone November 12th on Disney Plus.